right on time, as predicted. Guess what's happening, everybody? The Wall Street Journal is reporting, U.S. intensifies airstrikes in Afghanistan as Taliban offensive nears Kandahar. About a dozen strikes are aimed at slowing a Taliban surge, aiding a beleaguered Afghan military. So, we've been saying it all along that even though Biden is withdrawing, it's not really a withdrawal. It's a drawdown, but they're probably going to keep some private contractors there. They're probably going to keep some boots on the ground in order to train the Afghanistan military. And now air power is right back in. So I don't know if it's drones. I don't know if it's airplanes. I don't know if it's both. But U.S. is still in Afghanistan and they're dropping bombs. In a world that made sense, there is no such thing as withdrawing, but also doing airstrikes. That's not a thing. Like, you're not actually withdrawing. You're doing airstrikes. You're still waging war. So we're still waging war. You could say it's good he drew down and pulled out of, Bagram Air Force Base, but this is not a withdrawal by any stretch of the imagination. By the definition of the word withdrawal, this is not that. So, listen, it is absolutely true that the Taliban has been surging and has been taking over territory. Now, the other point that people haven't really made, though, is that this is all, totally desolate, isolated area where, it's poor villages that have zero defense. And that's not to say it's a good thing that the Taliban took it over, but it was going to happen no matter what. I think the fear now is if Kabul and Kandahar fall, it's like, oh, well, those are the big cities, and then you basically don't have Afghanistan, you have Talibanistan. So that's why I think they're doing it. But having said that, I've made this point to you guys a number of times before. It doesn't matter if you withdrew in 2005, if you withdrew in 2008, if you withdrew in 2012, if you withdrew in 2016, if you withdrew in 2021, if you withdraw in 2042, whenever you pull out, this is going to happen. The Taliban is a guerrilla army, and they're in their own country. You're not going to outlast them and their will. So they could have taken over in 2006. They could have taken over in 2012. They could take over in 2021. They could take over in 2032. But they're going to take over at some fucking point. That appears to me to be inevitable. It's inevitable. And you can't tell me that this is about, preventing terrorists from having a stronghold or preventing Sharia law because we care about the women and girls in Afghanistan because our top ally is Saudi Arabia. So you can't tell me it's about that because I know it's not about that because our top ally has a Sharia system in place and beheads people in the public square for sorcery and witchcraft and apostasy and all sorts of nonsense, drug smuggling. So you can't tell me that. So, of course, we always get to the question, well, why are we really there? It ain't about protecting anybody. It's not about democracy. It's not about human rights. I mean, the reason we're there is it's control of a vital region. When you look at the chessboard of the world, and we don't want the rise of Russia or the rise of China to happen, so it's a strategic area where we want to have control. So it's about geopolitics. It's about imperialism. It's about the business of war, military-industrial complex. There's a lot of people who make a lot of money from war. It's also about the trillions of dollars worth of mineral wealth in Afghanistan. We want to keep our hands on that. But again, your options are a U.S.-backed corrupt puppet government that has very little support, warlords with child sex slaves, or the Taliban. Those are your options as to who's going to control the country. There are no good answers. There are no good answers. And if the Taliban's going to take over whenever we leave, then you just should rip off the Band-Aid quickly. I mean, you should have ripped off the Band-Aid immediately. If you say, hey, it's not 9/11 happened, we got to go after Osama bin Laden. I say, I get it. But after you get Osama bin Laden, we're donezo. But they always keep moving the goalposts. It's Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Okay, well, less than 100 Al-Qaeda operatives are in Afghanistan, and that's according to our own intelligence agencies. Should we stay there to try to kill every single one of them? Well, turns out that in the process of doing all these things, there was the rise of ISIS. So you could argue the war on terror had a backlash effect that was way worse than if we didn't even do the war on terror. So it's the exact opposite of success. This is demonstrable failure. And the old definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, I mean, that's what's happening here. Let's just go back in there. Let's do a little bit more bombing. Let's stay a little bit longer. Let's do this. Let's do that. you know, Jordan Chariton just released a story recently saying that in Flint, Michigan, they had poisoned water, and the government officials and the health officials wiped their phones to hide the conversations they were having at the time. Giant scandal of poisoning of an American city, and it was covered up, and nobody's talking about that. Nobody's trying to fix our infrastructure. Nobody's trying to fix the water. We have a number of places in this country where the water's basically poisonous. Nobody's trying to fix it. But instead we're talking about we got to protect Kandahar. It's a sick joke, right? Is that not a sick joke? Is that not a sick joke? We have a pandemic in this country and we don't have universal health care. But we have $7 trillion to spend in Iraq and Afghanistan. $7 trillion. Not okay. It's not okay. And so Biden's right back in there. We pulled out, but we're not really pulling out. We're going to stay there. I mean, listen, fact of the matter is, it does look like, to one extent or another, we are just going to stay there forever. Even if you say, oh, it's just airstrikes or it's just help for the Afghanistan military on the ground, it looks like there will be some presence forever. Nobody will ask how much it costs. Nobody will question the logic of it. It'll just be standard operating procedure. We just got to keep our eye on the numbers. Hey, how many are actually staying there? What's the actual number? Is it 1,000 people on the ground? Is it 3,000 people on the ground when you include contractors and soldiers? Is it just air power? I don't know, but in a sense, you're sort of delaying the inevitable. And there's a lot of bad things going on around the world, and we can't stop all of them, nor do we actually want to stop all of them, nor are we some real protector of democracy and human rights. We're just not that. As soon as you dispel of the myth in your own mind that that's what we're doing here, that we're acting as the world police and it's just and moral, then you realize how farcical this all is and how fraudulent this all is. Nobody's saying anything about what's happening in Sudan or the Congo or the Rohingya Muslim population, or we can go on with all the places where there's vicious atrocities happening and ethnic cleansings and whatever. That stuff's going on all around the world. But focusing on this and acting like this is the end-all be-all, and this takes precedence over any of the 1,000 serious problems we have here. It doesn't. It doesn't. But I don't expect that sort of a critical eye to be used from anybody who is in elite media.